Hello, my name is Kevin Sheehan. I'm asking you to vote yes on Measure M on behalf of my wife, our 8-year-old daughter, 2 3-year-olds, and dog, to preserve the future of the city in which we live. I first became involved when neighbors around the city expressed concern at an upcoming project of land owned by Stanford and El Camino. I, like many others, asked, what's wrong with some senior housing, which is what many of us thought would be going there. It's not senior housing, it's not retail, it's not restaurants, it's not hotels. There is housing, but for the most part, it's office space, lots of it. At the moment, the project and another proposed project at the former Cadillac dealership plan to build more than 400,000 square feet of office space along El Camino. That's 10 times as much as the 4-story office building that houses Charles Schwab. What's wrong with that? It won't work with our already crowded streets, and it wasn't what the city and community intended. Menlo Park adopted what is called the Downtown Specific Plan to serve as the blueprint for the next 30 years of development in this area. Rules and guidelines were created to help clarify how projects could complement Menlo Park's vision for the future as development proceeded. The plan was supposed to revitalize El Camino and downtown with a pleasant mix of retail, offices, housing, and open space. It was supposed to be simpler and easier to get things done. So why Measure M? The specific plan isn't specific enough. The amount of development allowed in El Camino was doubled, and market forces, not an explicit cap as most other cities use, would limit office space. The environmental impact report done before the plan was approved by the City Council assumed that 240,000 square feet of office space would be added to El Camino and downtown areas over the course of 30 years. In other words, retail, hotel, and other uses would be more attractive than office space to developers because of the economics of the time. Well, times have changed. We're at 400,000 square feet of proposed office space in 2 years because there are no specific limits on office space and no balance between office and other uses specified in the plan. That same environmental impact report said that traffic impacts of 240,000 square feet of office space would be unacceptable and unavoidable, but that the benefits outweighed the impacts. Nearly doubling again the anticipated development of offices isn't going to make those impacts any better, and we aren't getting the benefits of the other intended uses. All this development is an area with poor access to the freeways that will be bringing more than 90% of office commuters who come from out of town. Most of them will be arriving as we take our kids to school, and most will be departing just as after-school sports end. Traffic congestion and neighborhood cut-through traffic all over Menlo Park will be the unavoidable result of allowing 2 large office developments at either end of El Camino to serve as bookends to the city. The specific plan isn't specific enough, and Measure M is designed to fix that. Say my wife and I decide we need a new car. We want good mileage, we want to fit the kids, we want to take it to the city for dinner, we want to go to the beach, and we'd like something stylish. I propose a Volvo wagon. She says we need something bigger. We agree on a nice SUV. I'm pretty sure if I brought home my RV instead, I'd be sleeping in it. What does Measure M do? It clarifies the specific plan to encourage more balanced development and close some anticipated loopholes. It, 1, limits the total office space to the 240,000 square feet that was studied and envisioned in the plan. That limits rush hour traffic impact somewhat and encourages the overall creation of diverse non-office uses as intended. 2, limits each project to 100,000 feet of office space. That keeps any single project from massing office space, taking up all the office from later developers, and encourages mixed use on a per-project basis. 3, sets the stated goal of 474,000 square feet of non-residential use as a real limit, not something that could be negotiated away later. 4, changes the definition of open space from private balconies and rooftops to open space. Open space requirements are designed to keep buildings from being too densely packed together. What counts is on the ground. What doesn't Measure M do? It isn't a dessert topping and you can't use it as a floor wax. Measure M doesn't fix everything. We still have difficult traffic congestion and cut-through issues to sort out all over the city. We still have a jobs housing imbalance. It's getting worse. It will require more housing outside these projects to avoid the legal situation in which many cities in the peninsula find themselves now. The purpose of Measure M is to make sure we close the loopholes in the specific plan that will lead to larger than intended traffic impacts and encourage the envisioned mixed use instead of massive singular office development. It eliminates many of the uncertainties that make development a difficult process for both developers and the community. My daughter asked me if we'd still be able to ride our bikes to school when the project was done. I said, I don't know. Help me answer yes to her question by voting yes on Measure M. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Katie Ferrick. I've been a Menlo Park Planning Commissioner for the last 6 years. More importantly, though, I'm a parent of 2 children who attend Menlo Park City School District schools. one at Encinal and the other at Hillview. My husband and I have been active members of this community because we want to raise our children in a healthy, vibrant town, and we've worked very hard to be able to live here. When we first moved to Menlo Park, we lived in an apartment on Waverly Street and grew to love it here, so we decided to stay and raise our children. 11 years ago, we were able to buy a small house in Suburban Park, a wonderful neighborhood that's ideal for children, families, and seniors. We want the best quality of life possible for all of us in Menlo Park now and for future generations. I was one of the many thousands of participants in the multi-year visioning and specific planning process and was really encouraged by the community engagement the residents of Menlo Park showed. This public process shaped what later became the El Camino Real Downtown Specific Plan. The plan went through an unprecedented level of public planning, review, environmental study, and it evolved as public input was considered, impacts were analyzed. We ended up with a thoughtful and studied mix of zoning in a modest size and scale, in keeping with the village character that residents envisioned. What I mean by that is in this transit-rich corridor of El Camino between Palo Alto and Atherton, the plan includes public plaza space, bike and pedestrian improvements, housing, open space, community gathering space, traffic circulation improvements, office, and the ability to support local retail and restaurants with great jobs through transit-oriented developments of 2 to 4 stories primarily, close to our Caltrain station. Additionally, it's required to be reviewed and subject to modifications should negative impacts emerge as projects come forward. The plan has a built-in safety net that allows the city to go through an additional public review process to avoid negative consequences and protect our quality of life. Recently, some projects have been proposed and are currently going through the review process. Whilst under review, changes are still happening, and this process caused concern for some residents who took action through writing an initiative to change the studied mix of uses in the plan without studying the impacts. Even today, the 2 largest project areas of the plan are still not approved and both still under review. Currently proposed is roughly 48% housing, 45% office, and the remaining square footage is retail, cafes, and plaza open space. The No on M campaign is a group of residents volunteering our time because we all care deeply about Menlo Park and want to see it thrive. We strongly believe that M is a mistake for Menlo Park. We believe that arbitrarily changing significant parts of our zoning code without public input and careful study is just not good policy. Even if you agree with the proponents' objectives, the facts are clear that this initiative cannot deliver on those promises. If M passes, first we'll see more years of blight on El Camino Real. Once buildings are developed, traffic will get worse because the uses allowed under Measure M generate a higher traffic volume than the current mix of proposed uses that take advantage of this transit-friendly location. We will also lose out on developer funding for major bike and pedestrian improvements, specifically the bike and ped tunnel planned to connect Burgess Park to the project at the end of Middle Avenue. There would be less public open space in the developments because parking that's currently planned to be underground would move above ground as project economics change. The requirement that future changes to the plan can only be made by expensive and divisive citywide votes will prevent small businesses from locating here. These are according to the independent analysis commissioned by the city. We all care about Menlo Park and support the vision of a vibrant city with plazas, shopping, cafes, housing, great jobs, and safe pedestrian bicycle networks. Measure M threatens that vision because no matter how well-intentioned the authors might have been, they simply didn't vet what the impacts might be. Based on independent study by council, it's now clear that Measure M is deeply flawed and is a mistake for Menlo Park. It's for these reasons that Assemblymember Rich Gordon, County Supervisors Slocum, Horsley, and Pine, the entire City Council, along with 8 additional former mayors and vice mayors, all oppose Measure M, as do all 5 members of the Menlo Park City School District, the majority of the Fire District Board, a majority of Menlo Park Planning Commissioners, the Chamber of Commerce, the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, and many others. We encourage you to find out more about the negative consequences of M by visiting our website, menloparkdeservesbetter.org, and join me in voting no on Measure M. Thank you.
Well, isn't everything just about as clear as mud? Are you confused at home? My expectation is that you are, and I can't blame you. For the record, I agree with everything Ms. Ferrick said, and I think it's worth noting that everything that Mr. Sheehan said was about an opposite of it. The thing that's, you know, and if you look at an explanation why that is in this with respect to Measure M, frankly, it's because it's so poorly drafted. Measure M there's this amazing thing happening all over the city right now. If you go down to the farmer's market on a Sunday morning and you listen to people talking, handing out pamphlets, there'll be people standing side by side talking about the same issue, arguing the opposite point, being completely authentic and honest. Neither person is trying to mislead the public. The reason why they're doing so is because Measure M is so poorly written. If you look at how it came about, and frankly one of the big reasons why all of my colleagues on the City Council and I are against it, it's because it was crafted in secret by some lawyer somewhere. There was no public input, there was no public vetting. And what it means, the details, the finite details of what it means, are open to interpretation. It's a mistake. It's horrible public policy. And it's leading to some of the most ridiculous arguments in the history of our city. My name is Ray Mueller. It's my honor this year to serve as the mayor of Menlo Park. I'm married to my high school sweetheart. Like Mr. Sheehan, I have a dog. I also have 2 children under the age of 9 who are in public schools. They swim at the Burgess Pool. My son plays basketball at the Burgess Gymnasium. My wife and I worked really hard to get into this community. She's a public school administrator, and I'm an in-house legal counsel for a technology company here in the Silicon Valley. We love this community. We work every day to be here, and we're not going to do anything to harm it. And you know, if you look at my colleagues on the City Council, who frankly have been at times viciously attacked during this election process, they're the same way. Amongst us, we have 12 children, 2 of which are high school aged, and the rest are which in elementary school. We came to serve in Menlo Park because we cared about our community. And throughout this process, what we've all consistently said is Measure M is a mistake because of the way it was drafted, circumventing the public process. What's really interesting about Measure M, and one of the big misconceptions that I think people don't understand, is this argument about open space. And you heard Mr. Sheehan talk about that. Actually, what's really interesting about the open space argument that a lot of people don't understand is that if you don't count balconies as open space, what happens is, of course, the ground level will get larger. But what happens to the building? Because Measure M doesn't change the allowable square footage in the building. What happens is the buildings actually get taller. A lot of people don't realize that. Measure M actually creates taller buildings along El Camino. Another thing that people don't realize about Measure M is that while Measure M affects the uses of the buildings, it doesn't change the allowable square foot. So the buildings are going to be just as large, just taller. And then there's the traffic issue. And my expectation is that Ms. Fry is going to speak after me, and she is going to talk about traffic, and she's going to talk about medical use, and she's going to talk about the impact on the schools. She's going to talk about big box retail. She's going to attack everything Ms. Ferrick said, and she will believe honestly that her opinion is right and Ms. Ferrick's opinion is wrong. What I pose to you is that we will not know after the passage of Measure M who is right until the courts determine that, until the litigation is settled years from now. And our public process will forever be changed during that time period. Please don't take the power away from the City Council to make prudent decisions about development. Don't take away the ability of our community to come together in a public process and decide these decisions together. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Patti Fry. I'm a former Menlo Park Planning Commissioner, a mom, and a longtime resident. I worked alongside fellow citizens during the multi-year specific plan development process because I want future generations to enjoy the same quality of life that I have with my husband and son here in Menlo Park. Unfortunately, imminent office projects are jeopardizing the future that we've enjoyed, and we want to encourage you to join us in voting yes on Measure M to make a difference for that future. You've just heard wildly speculative claims from opponents of Measure M. These distort facts and contradict the city's consultant and defy common sense. Let's go through some of them. Opponents claim that the massive projects about to be approved on El Camino are what the community wanted. That is just not true. Somewhere along the line, the community's vision got hijacked. The vision of balanced development just isn't happening. No one asked for massive office buildings that are a block long and 60 feet tall. These belong in big cities, not in the middle of a residential community. No one asked for a 3-lane driveway in the middle of the public plaza on Middle Avenue. And nobody asked for only 20,000 square feet of retail when 400,000 square feet of office are going to be built. Opponents want you to believe that Measure M's development limits were never studied. That's not true either. They match exactly the amounts of development that were in the studies that were done for the specific plan, and that's what should be built. Traffic. We all know that our rush hour traffic and congestion and neighborhood cut-through traffic are really bad now. Large office buildings bring commuters into our town. Unlike stores and even medical offices, this traffic is concentrated at rush hour, not distributed through the day. We can control how much traffic we bring to the middle of our town, and that's why it's important for Measure M to control the offices and therefore control the commuter traffic that comes to our town. Now, in terms of the controls the council has, I have to tell you that Measure M just changes 4 things, and the City Council controls all the rest of the 356-page document that comprises the specific plan. They remain completely in control of many of the rules, and they can decide about public facilities, they can decide about special benefits and negotiate special benefits such as plazas and undercrossings. These changes and individual projects do not have to go to the voters. Those are in the control of our City Council. Now, development. Opponents want you to believe that development will stop, and they're going to threaten that because developers want to keep the sweetheart deal they got. Doubled the amount of development allowed and nothing asked of them in return. But let's be honest, Menlo Park is a very desirable city and land is very precious. Those lots will be redeveloped. Measure M encourages a variety of development and a variety of property uses that are consistent with Menlo Park's residential character. In terms of financials, offices do not bring sales tax revenue to our city. Shops, restaurants, and hotels do, and we need them to support our community services and infrastructure. The city's consultant stated that special districts like the fire district and school districts will not have any impact from Measure M on their finances or their enrollment. Make no mistake, supporters of M want revitalization and balanced growth. That means a mix of shops and restaurants, small-scale offices, so we don't have to drive somewhere else to support our daily lives. Please vote yes on M to restore the vision that our community created for future generations. And that's why we're all here. Join me, thousands of fellow residents, former city officials, and vote yes on Measure M. Thank you very much.